What's going on, guys, and welcome back to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for September 1st, 2023. I am Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great weekend so far. September already, man. That's crazy. Already September. That is just wild to think about. But we have Payback tonight. We have SmackDown from last night in Hershey, Pennsylvania. The only reason why I know that was because I had family in Hershey about a week and a half ago, and they said, oh, SmackDown's coming to town on September 1st, the same show that hosted the return of John Cena and, more importantly, Jimmy Uso. No, I kid. This was the go-home show for Payback tonight in Pittsburgh. It didn't do a great job of selling me on that show beyond the Miz and LA Knight verbal exchange. I thought that was great. That is exactly the sort of segment that you want on a show like this. Right before your pay-per-view, selling me on a match that I was already looking forward to. But it got me even more excited for that match than I was previously. And it's not even a match that's bound to be like an instant classic. It's LA Knight and The Miz. They're not known to be fucking Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart in the ring. But it's a match I'm looking forward to. We have it open the show. The crowd's bound to go nuts for LA Knight. But beyond that, not the most successful go-home show. And a lot of that is due to the fact that Payback is light on SmackDown star power. Roman Reigns is not around right now. We had more Bloodline progression on the show, kind of. We'll get into that. Jimmy Uso maybe wanting back in the Bloodline. Very confusing. Again, we'll get into it. Maybe Paul Heyman's involvement. Maybe he's involved in this whole thing and is kind of the puppet pulling the string sort of thing with Jimmy Uso and whatever. The mastermind behind the whole angle. But none of that has to do with Payback tonight. And Payback looks to be a very good show on paper. WWE has put together a very strong streak of shows on pay-per-view in 2023. WrestleMania, Elimination Chamber, Royal Rumble, even SummerSlam, Money in the Bank, Backlash, Night of Champions, Money in the Bank I already mentioned. All great shows. All good to great to excellent shows. Do I think Payback will be on the same level as some of those other shows? No. Pittsburgh should be a good crowd tonight. It's not exactly they put forth the most star-studded card possible. But with 6 matches, it should be a pretty solid show. Hopefully a quick, concise 3 hours, good, enjoyable action, correct outcomes. We can all be sent home happy after watching the show tonight. As far as SmackDown is concerned, again, not a lot of hype for Payback on the show. They did announce, though, I will give them credit for this. It was first reported by WrestleVotes, I think on Thursday, maybe on Friday afternoon. But John Cena will serve as the host for not only Payback, but Fastlane as well. Based on what Cena said in a video that WWE filmed and put up on their YouTube channel and on social media during the show last night, it doesn't sound like Cena's going to be wrestling many matches. I had seen people say, oh, they're going to have the John Cena Invitational where he takes on a new guy every week, like it's fucking 2015 and the U.S. Open all over again. The United States Championship Open Challenge, not the friggin' tennis tournament. But and listen, that's a great idea and all, him out there having matches with Waller and Gunther and people like that, LA Knight maybe. That's not going to happen. Cena even kind of made a comment towards the end of that interview. It's like a 5-minute long video, him chatting backstage with Kathy Kelly. It's a great video, and you could tell Cena is genuinely excited and happy to be back. But it sounds like he has an insurance issue where, due to the movies that he does and the agency that he's with or whatever for the films that he does, he can't get physical to a certain extent. We've heard this before with The Rock, which is why The Rock has not worked a match in over a fucking decade, and we're not counting the Eric Rowan thing. And if we are, he hit one rock bottom and that was it. They were happy to clear him for that. That's probably why Cena does not do much physically on these shows. I know he worked a match at WrestleMania. I don't know, honestly, in retrospect, if this film insurance thing is going on with Cena, which I didn't really even think about previously, which would explain why he barely appeared on television heading into WrestleMania, and why he barely did anything in the match at WrestleMania with Theory, and why that match fucking sucked. I mean, he's been doing films for years. He had a pretty competitive, not the greatest match, but it was a pretty competitive match with Roman Reigns that wasn't basic. I mean, he took a lot of offense in that match. He hit a lot of offense. So maybe it's a new thing, I don't know. But I would not expect him to be working many, if any, matches during this time back. I expect him to be working on the show every week, appearing every week, doing interactions, cutting promos, maybe doing dark matches, maybe. I think it's more likely we just see him out there cutting promos, and that's going to get old after a while. I'm happy to have Cena on the show in any capacity. But he might be building to one match, maybe at Fastlane. It said that he'd be hosting Fastlane according to the report, I believe, and I might be misremembering, but I'm pretty sure he might be hosting that show as well. That's in early October. His run currently extends through the end of October, so it's not like that would be the blow-off and he would disappear after that. He's around through like the Halloween weekend. So it's possible that whatever they do tonight with Cena and him hosting the show, maybe getting involved in the Grayson Waller effect segment with Grayson Waller and Cody Rhodes, could lead to some sort of a tag team match with Waller and maybe Theory, which they teamed up on the show, against Cena and Cody Rhodes, even though Cody Rhodes is a Raw guy, but WWE doesn't give a shit. That's possible. I would be down for that. I'm just not sure if that's the direction they're going in. So, point being, I would not get too excited about all these potential John Cena matches. And he's around for such a long time. He's going to work so much. Yeah, he is working by showing up, and I'm not sure if he's going to be wrestling, and I'm not sure if that's a John Cena issue. I'm not sure it's him saying, I don't want to wrestle. I think it's like an insurance thing where even though he's not filming anything currently due to the strike, and he's in between projects right now, I don't think he can... he might have been filming... I don't know what his current schedule is, but he might have been filming a movie before the strike happened. It went on pause, and they might pick right back up when it's over, whenever that might be. That could be next week, it could be next month, it could be next year at this rate. We have no idea. So they might not want him getting physical or getting too hurt or risking an injury. I mean, look at the fucking Rock 10 years ago. He was in the middle of filming Hercules. That almost delayed the entire production because he got hurt at WrestleMania both times in the matches with Cena at Mania 28 and Mania 29. They probably see that, not WWE, but like Hollywood, for example, and say, well, we don't want Cena suffering that same issue, so let's not have him get too physical. If he can go back, great, but don't have too many matches or do anything that might risk your, participation in this film. But anyway, let's get into it here for September 1st. I already talked a lot about John Cena. That's pretty much what he did to open up the show here, is everything I mentioned, pandering to the crowd, announcing he was hosting Payback. He said he found out as he walked through the curtain. That might be a shoot, but if he was actually active on Twitter, as he claims to be, following all these people and whatever, he would know one of the people he's got to follow is WrestleVotes. WrestleVotes put it out on Thursday or Friday that John Cena was hosting Payback. So if he followed that account, he would know that he was hosting Payback and didn't have to wait until he walked the curtain on Friday to find that piece of news out. Jimmy Uso came out with new entrance music, and it sounds fucking awesome. I would need to hear the full thing, but it sounds really cool. And this is exactly what I was hoping for when Jimmy turned on Jay. Not that I wanted to see that, but that they would kind of rebrand both guys, not give them new names or anything. And it's not like Jimmy came back with like no hair and he completely rebranded himself. He just came back with new music. He couldn't come back out to the same old music if he's not going to be associated with Jimmy, or rather Jay, going forward. They needed a new presentation for Jimmy. They got him a new song here, and it sounds fucking sick. So it sounds like they've spent the last couple of weeks putting together a new song for Jimmy, and it might not be the final evolution. Remember, before we got the Usos music we have now, they had other heel music that was like the instrumental of the music they have now, or did have before the split. But it sounds pretty complete to me. It's got lyrics and everything, so hopefully they release it soon. But Jimmy kind of, interrupted Cena, disrespected him. Cena says the wrong Uso got fired, and then laid out Jimmy with an attitude adjustment. This is what I'm saying. This might be the extent of his physicality during his run back in WWE. Hopefully he's not out there getting interrupted every week and hitting an attitude adjustment and that's it. Hopefully he can do a little bit more than that and it doesn't get old after a couple weeks. Hopefully. But this was cool, though. Jimmy went on to do other stuff during the show with Solo and Paul and AJ Styles. So I'm thinking maybe Jimmy and John, and it's funny because Jimmy's real name is John Fatu, I believe. Maybe that's his first program while Jay is gone, while Jay quit and whatever, in storyline, of course. This can be Jimmy's interim program while John Cena's around. It's still possible it could lead to a match, but it seems like Jimmy's doing other stuff. Maybe we get Jimmy in Solo against two other people, John and Cody Rhodes, I don't know, or Jey Uso even, who knows. I don't think he comes back so soon. If he's not back now, because people were wondering, are they going to do the match between Jimmy Uso and Jey Uso at Payback and have Rikishi as the special guest ref, as Rikishi had put on a frickin' an autograph signing or something. It said, he's going to be working during the day because at Payback he's going to be the special guest referee. One, even if that was the plan, I'm not sure why you would announce that. And two, that's obviously not happening. So anyway, we'll see where this goes. It was a nice little opening segment, though, to kind of introduce John Cena back into the fold, have him interact with one of the current guys, and it served its purpose. We had tag team action after that. Grayson Waller and Austin Theory picking up a rare win here over the LWO Santos Escobar and the United States champion Rey Mysterio. I believe this marked Waller's first win on the main roster, and they had good chemistry too, so I would not be opposed to them being a team coming out of Payback. Theory should not regain that United States championship. That was a fucking anchor around him. Maybe not for the first few months during his second run last year, and even going into 2023, But after he beat Cena, not even lost to Cena, but beat Cena. I've never seen anyone beat Cena and then be worse off afterward. Theory might be that person. Theory might be the first guy to have that happen to him. Cena did not avenge the loss. It's not like a Wyatt situation, for example, rest in peace, where like Wyatt beat Cena, but that he was still not on the same level that he was at previously. He did not beat Cena at WrestleMania, obviously, but he beat him at like a friggin' Extreme Rules. But then he ended up losing to Cena like the following month of Payback or whatever. And there's Payback. Even 10 years later, Payback is the John Cena show. John Cena was at the first Payback in 2013, that ambulance match. It might have been 3 Stages of Hell, but was it an ambulance? No, I think it was 3 Stages of Hell with Ryback at Payback 2013. And he beat Ryback that night. He was at Payback 2014. He beat Bray Wyatt, as I mentioned. I think he was at Payback 2015, too. I think he beat and faced Rusev on that show. I think that's where they had their I Quit match. I think, for the United States Championship, and he won. Cena won that. And I don't think he was at Payback. Did they even do a Payback in 2016? I don't remember. But Cena's got history at the show. He'll be back on the show tonight. But anyway, back to Waller and Theory. They made for good partners on this show. So coming out of Payback, I would not be opposed to them re-entering or just entering the tag team division as a team. They beat the LWO here. The funny thing is that Waller pinned Escobar. The match tonight is Theory and Rey Mysterio. So it's not even like Theory pinned Escobar. It was Grayson Waller pinning Escobar. I can't complain. At least Waller won a match, and he was the one who picked up the win for his team. The focus should not be on him going into the pay-per-view. I know he's hosting the Grayson Waller effect with Cody Rhodes, but still, it was a fun match, and it seems like the end game is Escobar and Rey doing something over that United States Championship, so I would imagine, as I've predicted before, elsewhere, Rey should beat Theory on Saturday, tonight at Payback, to retain the United States Championship. We had Bobby Lashley out next with the Street Profits to kind of, I was going to say explain their alliance. They discussed it. They didn't exactly explain it. They attempted to. It's not like they were interrupted because they weren't. They merely touched upon why they joined forces. The Profits thanked Lashley for like seeing something in them and making them more aggressive, and Lashley said that he was completely responsible for that. They're dressing to the nines. They look great. They got the suits on, and that's awesome. They have been a bit more aggressive in their matches against the Brawling Brutes and the OC, but it wasn't evident in this segment. They came out with the same old entrance music, which I don't hate because I love that song, but they came out doing the same song and dance, goofing around. They pretty much acted like babyfaces. This is where I'm confused. Are they a tweener faction? I know not every group and superstar on the show needs a label, like, oh, they're face, they're heel. They could be, somewhere in between. But like they're out there attacking babyfaces, doing heelish things. And then they're out here, pandering to the crowd. They're giving them a great reaction, the crowd is, to these three. They're not really doing anything to say, listen, fuck the rest of the roster. We're going to run roughshod. We're going to just completely destroy everything and everyone in our path, and that's it. They didn't say that. They were like, oh, we're happy to be here, and we're going to be more aggressive. It's like, I didn't see that. I hear the words, but I'm not seeing that. So I thought it was weird. I'm glad they at least got mic time together. We have not heard from Lashley on the show in the ring in a very long time. It's been months. He's not wrestled a match on the show, I don't think, in many, many months. Probably since May, when he lost to AJ Styles in that World Heavyweight Championship tournament match. That was 4 months ago. Listen, it was a good little segment, but hopefully there is more to come here, and it wasn't just like, oh, real recognizes real. All right, what exactly does that mean? I know what it means, but it's like, they weren't really doing anything before Lashley picked them up. They were losing a lot, so why wouldn't he acknowledge that and say, listen, you needed that extra edge, and then show that edge here by digging into the audience or being heels or whatever it might be. I think they are supposed to be a heel group because, again, they went after 2 babyface teams. They weren't attacking heel teams, whatever heel team SmackDown has at this point, which I'll talk about in a second. It was weird. At least it looks like we know where they might be going with this, though. As they walk back up the ramp, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn came out. They were not advertised for the show as far as I know. They had a quick squash against the LWO's Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde. Again, I don't think SmackDown has a lot of heel tag teams. They have the Brawling Brutes. They have the OC. The Profits still feel like baby faces, even though I think they're supposed to be heels. Owens and Zayn can float in their baby faces. They have Pretty Deadly, but they're a heel team. I don't know why they didn't just squash Hit Row, but the match was pretty much a squash. It's not like LWO even got any offense in. But anyway, so it looks like that they might be headed towards the Profits against Owens and Zayn. The funny thing is that we already saw that match coming out of WrestleMania. It was the first match Owens and Zayn had as tag team champions on that post-WrestleMania Raw. They had a really good match, non-title. Owens and Zayn won clean. They might go back to that, this time with the Profits showing more, hopefully, of an edge. And with the tag team titles being on the line this time. So we'll see. They did tease that here. I'm still kind of hoping for a DIY in Owens and Zayn, but time will tell on that front. We got to get Johnny Gargano back on the show first. I already mentioned the Owens and Zayn squash. We had the final face-off between Miz and LA Knight before their Payback match tonight. This was the best part of the entire show, and a show that had the returns of Jimmy Uso and John Cena and a couple other good stuff. This was my favorite part of the entire episode. Miz and LA Knight, like they did a couple of weeks ago on Raw, kind of what kicked off their feud, going back and forth. And Knight slipped up at one point, talking about like taking his paychecks to the bank and cashing his checks there, whatever. Beyond that, and he recovered well. This was a excellent segment. Excellent segment here, hyping up their match. And like I said earlier at the beginning of this review, this was the sort of segment that you want on your go-home show to make people more excited for the pay-per-view, and specifically for, any particular match on that said show. This was great. And like I said, Miz and LA Knight are not going to go in there and have this amazing 5-star mat classic. They're not. But they could go in there and have a very entertaining match because the crowd is behind LA Knight. And Miz, to his credit, this was not all LA Knight. LA Knight, a lot, to be completely honest here, has been cutting great promos. But he's been slipping up in a lot of his promos lately. There's at least one line in every one of his promos, and specifically when he's face-to-face with the Miz in the ring, and he's cutting live promos, where he slips up and he botches or whatever, and it's really not that big of a deal. It's not really not that big of a deal. He slips up. It's not the end of the world. It's like his matches, too. He really typically tends to have one noticeable botch in his matches, like the match with Sheamus, the match with Rey a couple of months ago. It is what it is. But the crowd is still, the crowd is still very much behind him, like they were in this segment, and they are going to be again at Payback when he faces off with Miz. But this wasn't all just LA Knight. Miz, I thought, to his credit, did a great job of holding his own and reminding people of how good he is on the mic as well. We don't really get to hear that side of Miz, that intense side of Miz, where he wants to put down the newcomer and put himself above them and return to his former glory as a former WWE champion. Blinking, you missed that second run from a couple of years ago, but still, he's accomplished a lot. And Miz, because how badly he's booked a lot of the time, he's won one fucking televised match all year. People tend to still sleep on The Miz, and understandably so. But he can go in there with a segment like this and prove why he is one of the better talkers WWE has, and how he can be always relied upon to elevate other people like LA Knight. I know they're around the same age, but Miz has been in WWE, like you said, for almost 2 decades. Knight's only been here for a cup of coffee. So really, Miz is helping to elevate LA Knight through this program. That's the whole purpose of their program. But I thought this was really good stuff, though. I'm looking forward to the match. Miz did lay out LA Knight with a skull-crushing finale, which made sense. If LA Knight is winning on Payback, which he should be. But then LA Knight said, fuck it, got out of the ring a couple seconds later, not seconds, but like a minute later, went right after the Miz on the stage, and they had to be broken up by the producers, the backstage officials, whatever. So I thought this was far and away the best part of the show. Unfortunately, we had Bayley and Shotzi after that. No disrespect to either one of them. I like both. I like Bayley a lot. I think Shotzi's okay. This was not a good match. I say unfortunately because the match was not good. And unfortunately as well, again, it's a case, I think, with Shotzi. Because this is not the first time she's gone in there and had a really piss-poor matchup. There's a lot of matches she has had on the main roster for the last 2 years now that have just not been good. And the weird thing is that I thought she was having pretty consistent quality matches in NXT. And it's not like, I was kind of surprised when they called her up in 2021, but she'd been down in NXT for close to 2 years at that point. I'm thinking, she got called up after a year and a half. It's not like she was called up after 6 months. She did spend a decent amount of time in developmental, but she just has not had great matches. The booking hasn't been great, but it's also a Shotzi issue to where I thought the character change and the new makeover was a big upgrade for her. The new short hair, she looks great. The acting, which I'll get to on the SmackDown Lowdown, we heard from her on that show today, and it was just fucking awful. The acting where she attempts to look like crazy, like, oh, I'm out of my mind, it's awful. But the new look helps, and she wants to be crazy and whatever, that's cool. The matches don't complement the character. The matches do not accompany the push or whatever push they're trying to give her. This was not a good match. And Bayley's been around the block forever. Bayley's been in this company for over a decade. But not even she could go in there and have this competent match with Shotzi. It was just not a very good match, and the crowd did not give a shit. Shotzi needs more opportunities to connect with the crowd. Listen, she could be fucking bad in the ring, but the crowd still cares about her. Currently, they do not care about Shotzi. She's also, to boot, not good in the ring, so it's not a great combination. But I applaud them for trying to push her with this new character. Bayley, I applaud her for trying to put Shotzi over. Charlotte did cost Bayley the win. She distracted Bayley from ringside. Her music hit. Bayley got distracted. Shotzi picked up the win. Next week on SmackDown, it's Shotzi and Charlotte against Bayley and Io. Can we get more focus on Io as the WWE Women's Champion? She's been champion for a month and you would never fucking know it. She comes out with the belt, but we haven't really even heard from her. It's more about Bayley, honestly, than it is Io and all of Damage Control. I love that Dakota Kai's back. That's awesome, even if she's not getting physical for a while because she's still actually hurt. But Damage Control sucks. I mean, the group is just not good. It's never really been booked well. They lose a lot. I don't give a shit about the group. I'm pretty sure they lost that tag team match to Bianca and Charlotte a couple weeks ago. And the weird thing is that Bianca's gone anyway. Apparently, Bianca was written off for like a couple of weeks, a couple months, whatever it might be. Well, why would she go over that match if she's not going to be around for a while? That made no sense. I don't know. The whole Damage Control thing, it looked like we were on the right track going into SummerSlam when they were teasing tension, specifically Money in the Bank, and we've had no follow-up on that since then. They were teasing tension between Bayley and Io for months. And ever since SummerSlam, really, they haven't gone back to that. And I know that's the long game. Maybe they want to do that at WrestleMania. Does Asuka not want her championship back? I don't know. It's weird. I mean, we got a couple different storylines right now in the SmackDown Women's Division, and that's great. But they need a clear vision of where they're going here. Like, is the focus Bayley and Shotzi? Because no one really cares about Shotzi right now. Is it Charlotte and Bayley? Again, been there, done that, don't care. I don't know. It's weird. The main event, Solo, Sikoa, and AJ Styles. So this was set up from earlier in the episode when Mia Yim was backstage, or Michin, excuse me, I guess. She was backstage with Adam Pearce, and they were talking or whatever, and Jimmy Uso interrupted Mia Yim. So AJ did not like that. He got in Jimmy's face backstage, and then Solo kind of stepped up for Jimmy, even though Jimmy's not exactly in Solo's good graces, which I'll get to in a second, but Solo stepped up. He faced AJ on the show. They had a solid match, nothing really overly memorable or special or anything, but he did win. Again, Solo wins a lot. And he can add AJ Styles to the list of former world champions and big names that he's beaten, like AJ, Sheamus, Kevin Owens, Matt Riddle, Sami Zayn. He's beaten them all. But anyway, he did win here again, following a distraction from Jimmy Uso, who hugged Solo afterward. And then Solo almost did the Samoan spike on Jimmy. He's like, what the fuck are you hugging me for? Like, didn't you turn on the Bloodline a couple of months ago? And Paul Heyman told him to stop. So I can't shit on this completely until we see where it goes. As far as first of all, Jimmy Uso being back in the Bloodline would be a massive step backward. That would make absolutely no fucking sense. If Jimmy turned on Jay at SummerSlam because he hated his brother or was jealous towards him or whatever, the explanation that he gave was weak regardless, coming out of that pay-per-view. But if that's what they want to do, okay. But why would... He even said a month ago he wants nothing from Roman Reigns. Roman said, I'll give you the world, I'll offer you a spot back in the group, and Jimmy said no, which makes more sense. Jimmy being on his own would make the most sense because he doesn't want to be manipulated or abused by Roman Reigns. Like, why would he want back in the group now all of a sudden at the end of the show? It didn't even match what he was saying at the beginning of this show. So why would he now be back at the end of the show hugging Solo? That's what the big question is. I'm sure that's intentional. I don't want to give them too much credit, but it seemed like Paul knows something that we don't. Maybe he paid off Jimmy. We don't know yet. We don't know. But I hope that's not the direction they're going in. Regardless, it feels like the storyline is going in circles. And that was bound to happen with Roman being gone for right now, Jay being gone for right now. And that might be happening for months. If this melodrama that we're getting with Solo and Jimmy is intended to carry the show for the next couple months, that's a big fucking problem. Because it really isn't bound to go anywhere. Solo and Jimmy are both unlikable heels. How much story can you really tell if there's not a babyface in this program for them to work off of? They're not on the same side. They shouldn't be on the same side. That would make no sense. They have exhausted every possible direction they can go in with these two, specifically the Bloodline, at least until Roman and Jay come back. Not that we're going to get Roman and Jay again, and we shouldn't, but Jimmy and Jay is where they're headed, but then they shouldn't have done the turn at SummerSlam if we have to wait 6 months to do it. I know they had him quit and they'll bring him back at some point, but if this is the shit that we're left with in his absence, I'd rather Jimmy just go off and feud with someone like John Cena. To be honest, him continuing to interact with Solo, again, if they don't interact, that makes no sense, but like, why would he want back in the Bloodline? That makes no sense. So I'm not super hot on that being the new direction going forward. I hope they can continue to make it interesting. I'm skeptical based off what I saw on the show from Jimmy Uso and Solo. But I guess they want us to wonder why would he do that and where they're going with this and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, that closed out the show. That had absolutely nothing to do with Payback, by the way. They literally said as they went off the air, oh, by the way, we have a pay-per-view tomorrow night. It's like, no shit. That should have been the whole purpose of the show, was to kind of sell people on Payback. I can't say it did. I'm looking forward to the show because WWE, it's hard to sleep on them at this point because, again, they've had such a great track record of shows in 2023 specifically. It should be an entertaining event. But more should have been done to make that show feel special. I mean, to their credit, they had Cena announce that he's the host. Austin Theory and Ray hyped up their match as well as they could. Owens and Zayn had a quick squash to hype up their Philadelphia street fight with the Judgment Day. And Miz and Knight had a promo exchange. So it's not like we had no hype for Payback, but it feels like a lot of the bigger matches for Payback, like Nakamura and Rollins and Rhea Ripley and Raquel, Trish and Becky, those are all Raw matches. So they tried. They tried. I can't fault them for that. It was a good show. I actually liked the show on the whole. It just didn't really feel like it did much to leave me more excited for the pay-per-view tonight than I was already, aside from the Miz and Knight segment, which I thought was great, and I thought they did a effective, excellent job of getting me more excited for that match than I already was. But that was SmackDown in a nutshell for September 1st, 2023. Thank you guys for checking in my audio review of the show. I appreciate it. We should be back next week with an audio review of the Boston show. We didn't do one last week just due to the Wyatt stuff, and it was a super emotional episode, but I was also away as well, camping actually. And then All In was that weekend, so I didn't even do a Collision review either. That was a completely pointless show as well. Not that SmackDown was pointless, but it just wasn't a great week to review the show. Not that there was a lot to say anyway, just because it wasn't really about the storylines. But regardless, we'll be back hopefully next week with another SmackDown review. It's going to be in Boston next week. No Cena, not interestingly, but Cena's a Massachusetts guy, and he won't be in the Boston show because he's going to be in India for that show, taping that same day, having a match against, I think, Imperium with Rollins or whatever. I don't remember, but no Cena next week. I almost thought about going to that show next week, but I've been to so many shows, and I was in Boston like a month and a half ago. I've been to a lot of SmackDowns this year. I really do not need to go to SmackDown again for a while, so I'm taking a break. I'll be back at SmackDown down the road. I'll be back here next week and reviewing the show for you fine folks here on the channel. Have a great weekend, folks. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.